we're back. So let's analyze this fucking chapter, starting with the first page, in which Imu is recalling a certain day. Now let's go fully deep here, panel by panel. First of all, we go from white to black, fading into the darkness. That's just an indication that we're going to the flashback, to Imu's memories. And Imu is listening to Joyboy calling his cell phone, because as we see in the next panel, there is some fucking buzzing sound when Imu picks up the phone. And again, in the following panel, when Joyboy asks, who are you? We hear the same buzzing when Imu introduces himself. In the third person, of course. Also, these panels are completely black. I don't know if I didn't wanna spoil this shit, or that we are like in the void, as the title says right above it. But at the very least, when Joyboy announces himself, we do see something. Something is lit up. His smile. Now, since this is from Imu's perspective, you could say that Imu was stuck inside that void, surrounded by nothing but darkness, alone, until he made this connection with Joyboy, and he pulled him out from that dark place. That was the start of their great friendship. You know, before they had a nasty breakup that resulted in Imu banning phones, leaving us with fucking telepathic snails to communicate. But is this an actual snail or phone call, or is it something else entirely? I know that Oda uses that type of text box, that octagon type, when characters are talking through a snail phone, but what if they were actually face to face, but Imu was behind some glass door or something, see-through, you know, because he was like imprisoned, trapped inside a high-tech solitary confinement, powered by electricity, of course, to explain the buzzing. And they were talking through an intercom, and Joyboy decided to free Imu, like, you know, how Luffy freed Loki in this arc. And remember what they were talking about Loki, that he's cursed. Don't let him out, because every catastrophe, every disaster, everything bad stems from this motherfucker, the accursed prince. Anyway, what if in Imu's case, the rumors were actually true, and all that evil shit was packed in there, like a Pandora's box situation? Either way, from reading this page, it seems to me that Imu and Joyboy were boys. They were cool, you know? Because when Imu says, yes, Joyboy is already dead, he seems kinda angry. He has some popping veins in his forehead. To me, he doesn't look like the guy who committed the murder of Joyboy. Also, the only time this stone-faced fucker showed some kind of emotion was in another instance that he had a flashback of Joyboy, a memory of them laughing together, saying something like, the world itself rejoices in dominion. And then he had that flashback where I think Joyboy said, isn't that right? And then this guy screams on top of his lungs, isn't that right, Joyboy? He shouted angrily, but that anger comes from the realization that Joyboy is not here anymore to have another laugh with him, you know, a good time, to be his friend. Perhaps. Now, another scenario, curtain number 3, is that Joyboy somehow found this guy who was the king of the world already, in his little void dimension, somewhere sitting alone in his empty throne, and convinced him to get outside. He was like, what are you doing here stuffed in this black room? Come on, let's go get some fresh air. Fuck this ruling the world shit, and let's go have an adventure. And that's when shit hit the fan, when Imu abandoned his position as king of the world to hunt treasure, having adventures and partying and drinking and all that good shit. That was the trigger for the beginning of the Great War. It was to get Saint Nerona Imu back on the chair. I'm kind of freestyling here, but maybe the reason the Roger Pirates laughed in the face of Joyboy's treasure is that because they saw Imu wilding the fuck out. We're still in page 1, though it's probably the most interesting page, along with the last one. Well then, let's go to the fight between Imu and Luffy. Imu demonstrates some new techniques from his arsenal, like when he does the impersonation of Luffy's Gear 4th King Cobra attack. By the way, did Imu's hand stretch all the way to the ground in that panel? So can he actually use any devil fruit ability he wants? But why does every move from Imu end with an explosion? Also, Zoro said before that the black flames, the omens that Imu blasted in his face, mutated, turned into bullets. So Imu likes guns, huh? You know who else really likes to use gun attacks? Fucking Luffy. You know, we have the Gomu Gomu bullet, pistol, rifle, bazooka, and the list goes on, you know. I've always wondered, why is that the naming convention for Luffy's attacks? Probably just to sound cool. And also because in chapter 1, Kid Luffy, before consuming the Gomu Gomu or Hito Hito or whatever, the fruit, he says to Shanks, "My punch is as strong as a pistol." So we have the age-old battle between gunpowder versus rubber bullets. I'm on Imu's side on that one. Anyway, we get a little more of back and forth between Imu and Luffy, but Imu is the only one on the offensive. He has the upper hand. Luffy's on the run from those gunpowder bombs until he does a Tokyo Drift, spins around and fists the bombs with a jet gatling. Another gun, by the way. And then we have this. What the fuck is this? Luffy becomes a genie, or as he says, Gam Gam Majin, which means demon, right? I mean, all I know is from Dragon Ball, Majin Vegeta, with that M on his head, and not just from balding, you know, he had an actual M, indicating that he was being possessed by an evil spirit. I mean, I need to refresh my memory, but I know that he wasn't being himself and he was evil. Kind of like what Imu does with his Domi reversible shit. Anyway, back to Majin Luffy. So you're telling me that this form, this evil form, was the result of the Omen explosion that caused an infusion with Imu's gunpowder. Usually, from my experience at least, you get a genie after rubbing a lamp that you found, you know, in some decrepit basement. Also, where are my wishes? Or I guess it would be Imu's wishes? Also, another weird thing about this guy is that he has seemingly a piece of meat tying down his turban. Speaking of meat, the jump cover was Luffy eating some medium rare steak. Coincidentally. Also, you know, Luffy, right before jumping into the action, was wolfing down a hefty amount of elbaf meat. But let's continue. Then we have the Straw Hats theorizing about Imu, like me. And Brooke says, the world government is always shrouded in mystery. I don't know why, but that grabbed my attention, like it has a deeper meaning, something hidden. Maybe because of all those suspicious dots, or maybe because this guy was also shrouded in mystery when we met him in Thriller Bark, inside the Florian Triangle, the most mysterious and shrouded place in the One Piece world. I'm sure there is a connection between those huge shadows that were hidden behind the mist. As the narrator said, when we were leaving the Florian Triangle, he goes, "It is a deep, ancient mystery." Anyway, back to the fight. Genie Luffy sucker punches Imu. I guess he's sucker punching now because he's in his demon devil evil form. So he's fighting dirty? I don't know. Imu rings his bell, does the stigma attack. But what the fuck is that black speech bubble? I didn't notice that before. It's pointing right where Genie Luffy was before de-transforming, reverting back to his Nika form. The black flames chase Luffy. Was running so fast, he's leaving behind his own white flames. Then Imu descends and metamorphoses his staff, converts it back to an omen and throws it in the floating eye omen behind him. It goes inside, right? And then from that ring of darkness, another weapon emerges. The Sword of the Wailing Void, which comes out and sucks the life of Sycamore or whatever. That tree decomposed swiftly. And actually Imu did a whole deforestation. Then he jumps towards Luffy and says, "It is clear, thou art not Joyboy." Then punctures his guts while stating Joyboy would never be this weak. That whole "you are not Joyboy" statement reminds me of Whitebeard in Marineford when he said "you are not him" to Blackbeard, the man that Roger is waiting for. By the way, while saying this, Imu looks infuriated at this imposter who's not as strong, as formidable as his dear late friend, Joyboy. I mean, he's complimenting Joyboy, right? Joyboy's strength. By the way, that's not a regular stab wound. Luffy got pierced by this life-sucking, tree-withering sword. So besides blood loss and sliced organs and shit, this sword probably sucks Luffy's life force as well. Maybe he'll become shriveled up after this. Although, that's how he ends up anyway after using Gear 5. I'ma leave you with this observation, the final analysis. I find very interesting that we begin with Luffy at the cover of Shonen Jump, eating meat and holding a sword there that goes through, I don't know what, pepper? What is that? And a chunk of meat. And we end with him turning into a kebab. Right, peace.